Howdy everybody, it's Brock and we got a brand new episode of All About. Today we're learning about everyone's favorite. Everybody knows about these guys. It's the seahorse. Now there are a lot of different species and variations of seahorses out there, so I'm going to try to cover as much as I can so that no matter which one you get, you'll do just fine taking care of them after watching this video. Before we get started, we were able to squeeze one more video in before the end of the year of 2022. I just want to thank everyone that subscribed to my channel, watches my videos, likes them, comments on them. Y'all are what makes this channel and hobby so fun. The more we learn from each other, the better we'll be in this hobby. So let's jump into it. Starting off with the basic facts. Prices on these tend to vary depending on the one you get. I was seeing CUDA seahorses going for $200 each, dwarfs being as low as $20. Some captive bred species ranging from $50 to $100, so there's a wide range of prices that help anyone's budget be affordable. If it was me, I would definitely be eyeing the captive bred ones because they will be much hardier and easier to get to eat rather than the ones that are straight from the wild. Now the tank is very important when it comes to taking care of seahorses. I'd recommend at least a 30-gallon for housing seahorses. And in some cases of the larger ones like the CUDAs, I would recommend even higher, maybe like a 55-gallon or more, because they can eventually get 6 inches in length. The best tanks for seahorses are going to be those taller ones, the taller skinny ones that you see. Seahorses would rather swim up, grabbing onto microalgae and different kinds of sea fans. This also is a big deal for them whenever they're catching food. So whenever you feed in a taller tank like that, it gives all of the seahorses plenty of room to jump around and catch that food as it falls down to the sand bed. A species-specific tank usually works best, but there are some compatible fish and inverts that we will discuss. When putting together a seahorse tank, you'll of course want a sand bed at the bottom, a few pieces of live rock in there, and mostly things for them to grab on. So you want things like microalgae is a great one to have. That's a natural organism to have in the tank for them to grab on like they grab on in the wild. Sea fans are also a really cool one to get. They don't have to be, living sea fans. You can also buy props the same way that look just like them. They love hanging on those. And even aquarium plants that are not real. So those freshwater ones that are real tall, you can get those. Some resemble the same plants out in the ocean that they hang on to. Look for those as well. They will love hanging on those. Most of the time you see them with their tail wrapped around these, swaying in the current, or jumping from to and fro on each of those. I gotta give these a difficult care level. If you are a beginner in the saltwater hobby, I would stay away from seahorses until you set up a tank to take care of some fish first. You learn a ton in this hobby at the very beginning, and a seahorse is just not hardy enough to handle any mistakes you might make at the beginning. They can be very stingy eaters, and they're just very fragile to the tank parameters. So if you have a spike that happens on accident, these guys are definitely going to be the first to perish. Now their temper is extremely peaceful. They do not fight with their own kind or other fish. However, they can be hurt themselves, so do not put them with territorial or aggressive fish. Seahorses are reef compatible. They're not going to pick at your corals. The worst thing they might do is lay on one or hang on it as they're bouncing around the tank. I will say though, there does not need to be any stinging corals in the tank, because those will find the seahorses as an easy prey. Things like anemones and carpets cannot be in a seahorse tank. They cannot swim fast enough or well enough to avoid the stingers, and you'll just end up with some bad news on your hands if you have them in there. There is some variations with temperature of the tank when getting seahorses. You'll want to make sure you know whether one is a cold water seahorse or more of a tropical seahorse, because that'll depend on what you need to set your temperature at. Tropical seahorses thrive in that 70 to 75 degree water, while the cold water seahorses will like it at 64 to 67 degrees, so much cooler in the tank. Your DKH needs to be 8 to 12, pH 8.1 to 8.4, and your salinity 1.020 to 1.025. Those are basic there for you. The size of the seahorses depends on which ones you end up getting. The dwarfs can stay as little as 2 inches long. They stay tiny. They're super cute their whole life, while others can get up to 6 inches once reaching adulthood. So just depending on the one you get. Colors are usually the yellows, browns, blacks, and then some more cool colors that people like to go for are those reds and oranges. Now, their diet is the key factor when taking care of these fish. They are carnivores that needs a really meaty food in their diet. This is not a fish that's going to survive on flakes and pellets. They need high quality brine or mysis shrimp to feed on. It is best to turn off any filtration, power heads, anything that's making current in the tank when feeding. That way the food drops very slow for them, gives them time to catch up to it and eat it as it's falling down. Live foods are some of the best too when first housing these because they can be stingy to eat that frozen at the beginning. A lot of places you can get that live brine shrimp or mysis shrimp, little tiny ones you can pour into the tank. They will eat those up like crazy. Having a refugium is also a really good thing to have on a seahorse tank because that's just giving more of a natural resource of food for them to eat on. For a thriving seahorse, you should be feeding them 2 to 3 times daily. So for people that aren't at the house all day long, feeding them 2 to 3 times can kind of be tough. So having some more live creatures for them to feed on can definitely help you out. Now the origin, most seahorses are captive bred nowadays. They breed easily in the tank, so if you have a group of them, you will most likely see this exciting process happen right in front of you. Back in the day, they were usually retrieved from Australia and Indonesia though. Compatibility is also a very important factor for them. You will want to house multiple seahorses in a tank. At the minimum, please at least do 2 because it's going to reduce the stress of the seahorse as it goes into the tank. And it also just helps them be a lot more better at getting accustomed to the tank. You can usually use the simple rule of 1 seahorse per 10 gallons, and that won't overdo it. You cannot put these with just any fish, and in my opinion, a species-only tank is sometimes the best route with seahorses. They are some creatures that can coexist with them, like cardinals. Bangeye cardinals are super peaceful. They just kind of hang out, floating around the tank, so they won't be chasing your seahorses. Gobies can be a really good one. Some of those very peaceful sand-sifting gobies do great. Pipefish is another one, dartfish, and dragonettes. All of those do really well, but I will say the only issue with housing other fish in the tank is they will usually outcompete the seahorses at feeding time. So you'll most likely have to feed more and more to make sure the seahorses are getting that food too. The last thing I'll mention is making sure you have a good filtration and good water parameter practices when taking care of them. Spikes in the tank will cause them to perish very easily because they are so fragile, so make sure you're keeping up with those levels, doing your water changes, changing your filter pads out, whatever you have to do to keep those parameters in check. You want to do that times 10 whenever taking care of seahorses because they are very fragile. And on top of that, just make sure whenever you are acclimating them for the first time in the tank, go slow with them. Go really, really slow. That about wraps up a good overview of everything you need to know when taking care of seahorses. Good high level for you. They are a beauty and so fun to watch in the tank setting. However, they do require a lot of work at times. Make sure the tank is set up specifically for them. Feed them good frozen or live foods. And make sure they're not housed with any other aggressive fish. Thank you all again for checking out this video. Leave a like, leave a comment if you've ever taken care of them before and you want to share your knowledge or experience with them. Please leave that down in the comments. That helps so many more fish reefers as they come across this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and Happy New Year, everybody.